The procession from the village square to Okeke's compound was a grim and silent affair, resembling a funeral march more than a gathering of neighbors. Okeke walked at the very front of the line. His shoulders slumped so low it seemed his spirit had already departed his body. His expensive silk robes, which only hours ago were a symbol of his untouchable status, now hung on him like filthy rags, increasingly coated in the ghostly grey powder of the blight. Behind him followed the entire village, a long hunting line of skeletal figures carrying empty baskets, hollowed-out gods, and the heavy hearts of those who had seen their lives crumble while one man feasted in secret. When they reached the high fortified gates of Okeke's compound, his hands shook so violently that he could barely fit the heavy iron key into the lock. The metal groaned as the gates swung open, and as the doors to the primary barns were unbarred, the scent of the harvest wafted out into the dry air. It was a smell that was sweet, earthy, and overwhelmingly abundant, a scent that should have brought joy, but now brought only tears of bitter realization. "Do not lay a single finger on this food for yourselves," Ezeani warned, his voice booming with authority as he raised his ritual staff to hold back the desperate crowd. "This wealth is currently the property of the spirits, tainted by the sin of a broken oath. If any man or woman eats of this before it is properly offered back to the Great Mother Allah, their belly will turn to stone and their blood will turn to vinegar. We are here to balance the world, not to loot it." Under the strict direction of the priest and the village elders, the grueling work of emptying the storehouses began. It was a massive undertaking, far more physically demanding than the harvest itself had been. Every single yam, every bag of golden maize, every jar of thick palm oil, and every bundle of spices was hauled out of the shadows and into the light. Okeke was not permitted to stand aside and watch. He was forced by the young men of the village to carry the heaviest loads himself. Back and forth he went, moving from his barns to the boundary of the sacred grove, his muscles screaming in protest and his skin blistering under the sickly yellow sun. With every basket he carried, he felt a piece of his soul being stripped away. The restitution lasted all through the remainder of the day and well into the chilly hours of the night. The oracle's interest was indeed high. The spirits did not merely want the half that Okeke had originally promised, they demanded the whole of his pride as a penalty for his deceit. They emptied his house of the fine fabrics he had bought from coastal traders. They took the decorative coral beads, the ivory-handled knives, and the polished copper bowls. By the time the sun reached its zenith the following day, Okeke's once magnificent compound was as empty, silent, and desolate as his farm had been during the years of his failure. A massive, towering heap of wealth now sat at the very edge of the forbidden forest, a silent monument to one man's avarice and a whole village's unnecessary suffering. Ezeani performed the final solemn rites, pouring a libation of the last of Okeke's stored palm wine on the mound. "Great Mother Allah," he prayed, his voice echoing through the silent trees. "The thief has finally returned what was stolen. The debt is paid in full. We return to you the fruits of the broken vow and the interest of a man's pride. Take the food that was withheld, and in your mercy, give us back our lives and the breath of our soil."